G'day so-and-sos, welcome to my sewing room. My name is Kathy, that over there is Lucifer, and this is the bag that we're going to be making this week. So it's a sling crossbody bag, and I love this bag. I think it's just really versatile. It's a unisex bag, so I think it'd be a really good one to make for the blokes. And it's got two big pockets, so the front pocket, big enough for cards, cash, phone, or whatever. And then we have the main body pocket, which is big enough for a Kindle or whatever else that you might want to put in there, a small paperback. So I love how this bag wears. I love this. Nice and low on your hip, or shorten the strap and wear it up on your body like that if you're traveling and you want like your card, your cash, passport, whatever in there. Or if you've got a couple of kids with you and whatever and you want to wear it on your back, then yeah, nice and easy. So the strap is nice and long so you can get it on and off easily if you are someone that's got some mobility problems. And then you can shorten it up when it's on your body to fit nice and close if that's how you want to wear it. So yeah, just you won't believe how easily this goes together, I promise. And I'm going to show you step by step how to do the zipper pockets and stuff like that. So if you haven't done anything like that before, then today's the day. Okay guys, let's get cracking. So let's have a look at what we need for today. So all the usual stuff: cutting mat, acrylic ruler, rotary cutter, scissors and snippers, my clips, marking tool and something to turn out my work. Then I have my hardware that I need for today, and this along with the pattern pieces will be in the description box and a link for you to print out your pattern pieces. But this piece of zipper tape is 10 inches, this one is 14 inches. I have two 1-inch rectangle rings and one 1-inch slider. And then I have my pattern pieces and my webbing. Now for my piece of webbing, what I did was just wrap it around my body that way. So I've got a little bit of a gap in the front because that bag is fairly big. And I went, okay, well that's, I think it was 40 inches. Then I halved that again and added an extra 20 inches. That way I can slide my strap nice and wide to get it easily up and over my head. So you just figure out how much you want. Okay, then as far as pattern pieces go, I have my two connector tabs and I've used a light fusible fleece. I have my two outside pieces and I've cut them mirrored. So that means I've cut one and then I've flipped the pattern piece over the other way and cut the other one so they are mirrored, they're opposite. And a light fusible fleece for that one. And I've included a pattern piece for the fleece as well because it's just a little bit smaller if you do want to keep it out of your seam allowance. Then I have two out of the same piece as the outside for my lining, and again they are mirrored, and I've used a light iron-on interfacing for that one. And then my two pocket pieces, and again light iron-on, and they are 9.5 by 10 inches. Let's get cracking, loose. So we're going to work on the front panel zipper pocket first. So I have one of my front panels. It doesn't matter which one, you just decide which one you want your pocket to be on. Clips, rotary cutter, ruler, my shorter piece of zipper tape, my two pocket pieces, and my pattern piece that has the pocket line on it. And I'll make sure that's all marked properly in your pieces that you'll download. But on your main piece, when you put it all together, there will be a line that says zipper pocket piece. So what we want to do is fold it at that line and then place it, I'll have to do it on the back because it's that way, place it over your external piece, and then we're going to cut our pattern piece, our fabric, along that line. So make sure it's lined up nice and neat and square. And use your rotary cutter or your scissors to cut that across. And then you'll have two pieces like that. Pop that out of the way. So now I'm going to grab the larger half of my pocket, grab my zipper tape, and I'm going to place it right sides together so I can see the back of the zipper tape, and a little bit is overhanging each side, and whack some clips along that top edge there like that. Then I'm going to grab one of my pocket pieces, and with one of the 10-inch edges, I'm going to place it along the top of my zipper tape. So my fabrics are right side together. I can see the back of my zipper pocket panel. And I'm going to make sure I've got a little bit overhanging each side, and then just shift those clips to include that. So if we flip it over and have a look, that's what it will look like. I can see the pocket panel all around my fabric piece. You want to have it overhanging everywhere because we're going to stitch that down, so it's got to fit properly. Okay, let's go to the sewing machine, and we are just going to stitch along the top of that zipper tape. Okay, I'm going to be around 1/4 inch from the side of my zipper tape, so nice and close to my teeth. And my stitch length is around 3.5. And I'm just going to carefully stitch along the top here, making sure I backstitch. And I'm using these fingers to feel where those teeth are, and my zipper head is pulled right up and out of the way, all the way down that end. Careful of that zipper head. Now, while I'm here, because I never do this and I really should, and you really should too, let's just zip down along those teeth so that my zipper head doesn't accidentally come flying off. So just don't get your fingers anywhere near that needle. We'll just go over those teeth, even though that was really messy. It'll do the job. Cool. Now what we're going to do while we're here is flip that over and then over again like that. Now I'm going to go off camera and just give that a little hit with the iron to make sure that's laying nice and flat, and then we'll come back and top stitch that. Now, since we're now top stitching, I'm going to lengthen my stitch length back up to around 4.5 and line up the side of my foot with the side of my fabric here and top stitch this down. So little back stitch, and then staying nice and consistent with the side of that fabric all the way across there. Too easy. So that's the bottom half of our panel done. Now let's do the top. So I'm going to grab my other piece and I'm going to turn it up, wrong side up, and place that cut straight edge along the top of my zipper tape. Now, when I do this, I want to make sure that this straight edge here is lined up. That's the important part. And I'll whack some clips along the top there, like that. And then I'll just flip it up and make sure that looks right. And it does, it looks good. Flip him over, grab my other piece of zipper and find the 10-inch edge and place it right sides together with the other zipper pocket piece. Line up the sides, the bottom won't match up, so don't worry about that. And just make sure that top edge is lined up with the edge of the zipper tape, like that. Flip that over, make sure that looks good. Okay. Now we can take that, I might just whack some clips down along that side while I'm here, just to make sure that zipper pocket doesn't flip up on me anywhere when I'm sewing. Okay, so take that back over to the sewing machine and then we'll stitch along this edge here, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll flip it over, iron it, and then top stitch. Okay, remember to shorten your stitch length back down to around 3.5. Get that zipper head out of the way. And same thing, about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the zipper tape. And remember to back stitch, make sure that's lined up how I want it. Okay, back stitch down along this edge. And remember to back stitch at this edge. Cool, let's have a look at that and make sure we're happy with that. Flip up that top edge. Now when I flip it up, I want to make sure this seam is staying up. So I'm just turning that piece up over it. And that looks good. Okay, give that edge there a little hit with the iron. And then we can top stitch that. Righto. So top stitching, so lengthen your stitch length back up. Around that 4.5 or whatever length you use for top stitching. Little back stitch and then along this edge, keeping the side of my foot lined up with the side of the fabric there. So I'm around 1/8 of an inch. Like that. Cool. Now, while we're here, we are going to sew down around the edge of that pocket. So what we're going to do is start up here on this curve, and I'm very, very close to the edge. I'm like 1/8 or less. And what I'm going to do is just stitch down around the outside of my pink bit there, just to hold that pocket in place, and it'll get sewn over again later on. So what we're doing now is just basting. We're just holding it all in place so that we can trim that down. So very carefully over those teeth, make sure that you're using zipper tape that has plastic teeth. And I'm just going to carefully go all the way around. So when I get up here, I'm just going to make sure that I move my zipper head so it's included and it's not stuck on the outside there and I don't lose it. And up over those teeth, little back stitch. Too easy. So now I'm going to grab my not so good scissors because we're going to be cutting through zipper tape and I don't want to use my good ones. And I'm going to just trim down all of that excess pocket and all of that excess zipper tape. So it's all in line with my exterior pattern piece. And like I said, this will all get caught up again in the seams later on when we put our bag together. So if you sort of missed a little bit here and there, don't worry too much about it. It'll be fine. And up over those teeth like that. Cool. Okay, and there is our pocket all done. So now we're going to get our connectors ready. So what I'm going to do is place both my connector tabs in front of me, wrong side up. And along one of the longer edges, along one of the 2.5 edges, I'm going to measure up 1 inch. So I'm going to be drawing a line smack bang in the middle along the length of my connectors, like that. Then I'm just going to iron up those long edges to the middle and iron them down into place. So just fold up that edge to the middle to that line and then that edge and give that a bit of a hit with my cute little iron. Like that. And then I'll whack some clips on there to hold him in place as well while it cools down. Like that. And then this one, same thing. I'm still trying to find my other microphone that Lucy Purr took off with. So I use 2 mics because I've got 3 cameras, so it's just easier than swapping back and forth in between cameras. And I put it down the other day, put it right there, and she's taken off with it. And I have no idea where she's put it. She loves to steal things. So if you're a cat and you've got any ideas about where you'd hide a microphone, let me know. Okay, what we're going to do now is take these over to the sewing machine and sew down along those long edges. Then while we're over there, we'll then flip on our D-ring, our rectangle ring, sorry, and we'll stitch down that edge. And then we're going to attach it to our piece. So what we'll do is put one here in the middle and one here in the middle. So while we're here, what we'll do is just fold this in half along that top straight edge. So we find the center, give ourselves a little snippy there, and then along this bottom short straight edge, fold that in half and give ourselves a little snip there just to mark our center. So we can take all of it over to the sewing machine at once. So like I said, first of all, we're going to do our connector tabs. I'm going to be at around 1/8 of an inch. So the side of my foot is lined up with the side of the fabric. And this is a zipper foot or a 1/8 foot. So if you're using a wider one, just aim for 1/8 of an inch to the side. And my stitch length is still nice and long. It's a 4.5 still. Go down that one, and then I'll just pop this one underneath and just daisy chain them together. It's a little bit quicker. Pop that up. And other side. So I'm being a little bit lazy about back stitching on these, but they get sewn over and then sewn over again, and again. So I think they'll be right. Okay, snip these apart and get rid of my threads. Now I'll grab my rectangle ring, and I want to make sure that the back piece that has the join is going on the side of my connector that has the raw edges. And then fold that over and just baste that down just so it's held in place a little bit. Like that. And then same thing with this other one. What have I done there? There. So then same thing with this one. So back of my ring is on the back where the raw edges are. Fold that over and just a few stitches in there to hold it in place. Okay. Now we can attach it to the main part of our bag. So I'm going to find this snip up the top, and I'm going to place it so it's over my bag like that. It's not up like that. It's over your panel. And I want to be overhanging about 1/4 of an inch or so. So see how I've got that bit that's sticking up? That's what you want, because we want to make sure that it's on there and that we catch it again later as well when our bag is put together. So shorten my stitch length to around 3.5. This time I'll back stitch and across like that, and then back stitch there. Cut that free, and then this bottom one. So find the bottom center snip there. Make sure that is over my bag, and I've got 1/4 of an inch or so overhanging. And I want to be nice and close to the actual edge of the bag panel itself, but making sure that I am catching it. So it's around 1/8 of an inch, and it will get sewn over again later, but we don't want these coming loose and popping off, because that would suck. So there's my rectangle rings on. Now we're going to start assembling this thing. So I'm going to have it orientated this way in front of me. Grab my zipper tape, bring that zipper head right up to the top. And if I was a smarter woman, I would go over and zip across the top of those teeth so I don't lose my zipper head. So if you're smarter than me, go and do that before you do this. But I'm going to risk it. So I'm going to lay my zipper teeth right sides together with my panel. So my teeth are against the pretty part of my fabric, and I've got plenty of zipper tape overhanging both ends. And I'm just going to whack some clips down along that length, just like we did with our zipper pocket. And make sure that's nice and neat. Okay, and this sort of goes together very much like our pocket just did, same sort of technique. So I'm going to grab my pocket that corresponds with that piece, so that matches up with that piece, and lay them right sides together so I can see the back of my inside lining bit. And line up that straight edge with the edge of that tape, just like we did with the pocket. And try and make sure that the top and bottom of those pieces are lined up as best I can. And then, same as what we did with the pocket, I'll then shift those clips to include that piece. Like that. Or whack some more on, whack some more clips on. Like that. And then flip it over, make sure that all looks kind of neat, looks kind of matched up. Okay, looks good. Let's go over to the sewing machine and we'll sew that bit on. And then while we're there, we'll flip it over and iron it and then top stitch the same as what we did with our pocket. Now, before I start sewing, I'm just going to double check where this head is and make sure that it's not pulled right up down here where I could possibly hit it with my needle. It's right up there out of the way. That rectangle ring is out of my way, and I will just zip across this zipper tape while I'm here so that I don't accidentally pull my zipper head off while I'm sewing. That should do it. Okay, now we can start up here and get that zipper head right up out of the way. And same thing as what I did with the zipper tape before, about 1/4 inch and 3.5 mil stitch length. And see how I'm keeping my finger on that zipper head when I'm near it, just to make sure I don't accidentally hit it with my needle. And then using these fingers to feel, I can feel that I'm coming up to that other piece of zipper tape. So I'm going to go nice and slow. Use a hump jump if you need to. Over them, all the way down. Now I'm feeling where that rectangle ring is. Make sure it hasn't flipped over or anything. All the way down past that other lining bit. Cool. Now, I'll flip that one over and that one under, like that. And I'll give that a bit of an iron. And so now I'm ready to top stitch. So I'll start down in this bottom corner, right close to the edge like we did before, lengthen my stitch length back up to around 4.5. So the side of my foot is lining up the side of that fabric. I'm hanging on to that rectangle so it doesn't accidentally get in the way. And I will just carefully top stitch up this edge. And when I get up to this bit where that zipper is, I'm going to make sure that my lining's folded under that part neatly. And then very carefully go up over those teeth. See how I'm holding that zipper shut too? I don't want it sort of gaping there. and up, and I'm going to be mindful of this hardware up here. And little back stitch. Too easy. How cute does this look already? So we've got that panel on and the lining, and I'll just do this as a little reminder to myself when I'm editing to pop it up on the screen to make sure that when you do put this zipper in, that it is closing to the left, so that when it's closed, it sort of lines up with that zipper and it just looks better. But for now, I'm going to open up that zipper a little bit to get that head up out of the way. Put my piece sideways in front of me and grab the other exterior piece. And we are going to lay them right sides together and line up this straight edge with the edge of that zipper tape. Now, this part is a little tricky because you do want to make sure that everything is sort of lined up as best you can. So it won't line up against your curve because the top bit is up over the tape, so it takes that little bit of extra room. But you do want to make sure this top edge is fairly lined up and your bottom edge is fairly lined up, so that when we flip it over and put it together, it all goes together nicely. But we've got some wiggle room in our seam allowance, so don't drive yourself nuts with it. Just do the best you can. So my exterior pieces are pretty side to pretty side. They are right sides together. And those clips are there. So if I opened it up, that's what it would look like. Flip it over. Grab my other lining piece, and you probably guessed, place them right sides together. So I can see the back of the lining and I can see the back of my zipper tape. Line up this straight edge with the edge of that zipper tape and try and get this edge and your bottom lined up. And then shift those clips or whack a couple of more clips on there. Like that. Try and make sure I've got my clips the right way today. Cool. So that's what it will look like. Now, same thing. We'll take that over and stitch that on, flip it up, iron it, and then top stitch. So I'm sewing from the exterior side and starting down along that bottom, same thing, 1/4 inch, 3.5 mil stitch length, and using my other fingers to feel where all that hardware is, and back stitch across there. Make sure that second zipper is up out of the way, and just carefully sew up along this length. And when we get to that other piece of zipper tape up here, we're going to go nice and slow, take it easy. We'll miss most of it. And then up to the top, keeping my thumb on that zipper head there. And back stitch there. Cut that loose. And then we can fold that one over, fold the lining piece under. So my top looks like that, and my bottom is both pieces of my lining. I'll give that a hit with the iron, and then we'll top stitch up along here. Okay, so I'm going to lengthen my stitch length back up to 4.5 because we're top stitching, starting on that bottom edge. And when you're top stitching, just always make sure that you're not playing bobbin chicken, because you don't want to run out of thread when you're top stitching, because this is a real detail in our work. So you want it to be one nice long continuous stitch. Saying that, I didn't check my bobbin. I'm good. Okay, that is that bit done. So this is what we should look like at this stage. So our exterior pieces with our zipper in the middle, and then our lining pieces on the other side with the zipper in the middle. So pretty easy. But let's get you comfy. Okay, now what we're going to do is have it laying in front of us with the exterior side up, and I'm just going to fold it in half. Now, before you do this, just pull your top zipper down out of the way and pop them together. So my two exterior pieces are together, and then my two lining pieces are together like that. Then we are just going to, oh, you're a pain, get the cat comfy, because that's the most important thing. And we're going to start whacking some clips around. So when we do this, we're going to mark ourselves a turnout hole on the lining piece, because that's how we turn our bag out. But we want to make sure that we take our time and line up these corners and line up that corner like that. And then up on this corner, making sure that our rectangle ring is poked down in between our pieces like that. Sorry, this is just awkward. I'm trying to balance Lucy so she's comfortable. I should just let her go. Man. Okay. I'm going to grab my pen, and along this curved edge, I'm just going to give myself around about 5 or 6 inches of a turnout hole. So pretty much in the middle, I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and give myself some lines there. And that will be my turnout hole. So I'm not going to sew that bit. And I'll do it on this side as well in case I have it that side at the sewing machine and I forget, like that. Then I'm going to whack some more clips down along the lining bit as well and just clip up around those curves. I spend way too much of my life trying to make sure that the cat is comfortable. I swear, she takes up the whole bed, she takes up the whole chair. But rules are rules. Okay, and then along the edge. Okay, we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we are going to sew around all of those edges. So I'm going to sew down that corner and then across and then up, around, stop here, and then start again here, down, and then up that little edge bit once Lucy's finished with a nap. So I've shortened my stitch length back down to around 3.5, and I'm going to start up on this lining side, up along one of these top edges. But honestly, it doesn't really matter where you start on your lining, if you start on the top or bottom. Get that zipper tape up out of the way, and I want to be at around 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. On the lining, let's go 3/8 on the lining, and then we'll go 1/4 on the exterior. So up to that corner, pivot, and then just down to that mark that I made for my turnout hole. Back stitch really well there, because that's going to be a stress point. We're going to be pulling and everything at that point. We don't want any ripped stitches. Start back again at this end at around that 3/8 and back stitch really well there. And then all the way around. Now the reason, if you're wondering why I'm going around 3/8 of an inch on my lining and then a little bit smaller seam allowance on my exterior, is your lining is inside your exterior. So it's just that little bit tighter, if that makes sense. So you just go a little bit wider with your seam allowance. So up to that zipper tape, right up, and then back stitch. Cut that away. Oh, a bird just hit the window. I might go check on him. He's right. Okay, so I'm going to start on my lining side, on my exterior side now. And I'm up over, I'm going to actually start just a little bit on my lining so that I come up and over that zipper tape here up in this corner. So there's one of my bottom straight edges, and there's my other bottom straight edge where our connector tab is. I'm going to start just past that zipper tape and then back stitch there and then up and over that connector, and then I'll start working my way around at around 1/4 inch, and I'm actually going to come back down and go over that a little bit wider because I'm not entirely sure that I caught that on both sides, and I really want to make sure that I don't have any holes in the bottom of my bag. But I'll get this done first. Pivot and up around this curve. Top bit. And then when I go up over this connector, I'm going to keep going up over that zipper tape to the other side of my lining. So that I've gone over my zipper tape at both ends. I'm just going to go reinforce that little bottom bit because I don't think I come up wide enough over that connector. So start up there, up over those teeth, back stitch, over that connector, making sure I've grabbed it this time. Too easy. So I'm going to use my not so good scissors and trim down that zipper tape on both ends. And then I'm going to snip into my curves. So not the turn that whole bit though. So what I'm going to do is just take off any sort of excess seam and then just start snipping into my curves close to the stitches, but not too close. You don't want to accidentally hit your stitches. And I'm about 1/4 inch apart from each one. And this will just make it look better when we turn it out in a minute. So yeah, a bird just smacked into the window. It was fine. I had a look. He's all right. He bounced. Lucy would had freaked if she'd been sitting up in the window and that happened, if a bird just come and smack right in front of her. She loves sitting up on that window and watching the birds, and there's cows and the kangaroos across the road as well. So yeah, she loves sitting up there and watching them all day. But yeah, she would have loved it. Oh, maybe I do need my sharper ones. So not so good scissors for zipper tape, but I can use my better ones to snip into the curves. So yeah, she missed an opportunity there, but she's still napping. Managed to put her down without waking her up, and now she's curled up around my backside. Okay, and then the lining isn't like it's still important, but it's not as noticeable when we turn it out, but we'll do it anyway. Okay, and snip away those corners. Let's get rid of those. There, a little bit there. Okay, now let's turn that out and see what it looks like. So all day I've wanted to say this goes together so easy you won't believe it, but I've been worried that I would jinx myself if I did that. But let's see. Okay, so find that zipper, open up that zipper all the way, grab this piece and pull it out through that turnout hole. And then make sure we don't have any gaps anywhere. Poke out that seam. So this bag was inspired by, I'm on a beginner sewing page where I just like being on there and sort of being one of the people that helps people out, but I also learn a lot of stuff on there too. And there was a guy on there, I think his name was Owen, and he did like we call them bum bags in Australia, but you guys call them like fanny packs or something like that. But same sort of concept, like a sling type bag. And he posted one that he made and he did a really good job. And I thought, yeah, that would be a good bag to do, especially for parents if you're just taking the kids out and you just want a few little bits and pieces, but you want your hands free. So it's big enough for your phone and your keys and whatever. Cool, that is looking really good. And I know I've used like very girly fabric, but yeah, it'd be great for the guys to have as well. Now I will heat up my iron and I will fold in, and I don't think you need to see me do that. You know how to iron. I'm just going to pop in these side bits like that, where our turnout hole is. So it's folded in like that, and I'll give that a hit with the iron, and then we'll iron that shut. Now, you can hand stitch it if you're someone that likes hand stitching, do like a blind stitch or something like that, or a ladder stitch where you're not going to see it. But that's not for me. So I'm going to change out my thread to a blue so it's less obvious, and we'll go and close that up. So I've given that a good press with the iron, and I'm going to start a little bit further down than what I think I need to, so I'll make sure that I'm catching both sides. And my stitch length is nice and short, it's around a 3.5. Come up to this corner bit, pivot, and I want to be about 1/8 of an inch, just making sure that I'm catching both sides. So I will check that once I'm done. And where's the end? There. So I want to make sure that I come a little bit further past that end to make sure there's no holes and I don't lose anything in there, because I don't need any help losing stuff. So now we can stuff our lining into our bag. And that is the bag part all done. Like, this comes together so easy. Such bang for your buck too. Like, such a cute little bag for such a simple put together and design, and not a whole lot of fabric either. So I pull that connector out, poke that bit out, get it all sitting nice. And I'm just going to give that a bit of a hit with the iron, and then we can look at attaching our strap. That looks good. Zippers up. So cute. Okay, let's have a look at this strap. So now I've got my bag, my slider, my strap, and some clips. So I'm going to grab my slider and I'm going to have it right side up, so the front of it is facing upwards. Grab my strap and I'm going to poke my strap from the bottom up through one side, over that middle bit, and down the other side, like that. Pretty easy, right? Move that down a little bit so I've got some room. And I'm going to fold over my strap at the back. So just that bit there. So that's the back of my connector there. Fold it over to the back because we don't want any raw edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is, when we go over, is sew that bit down, and then we can fold it over and sew it again. But I will show you while we're over there. And this time I will change out my thread to a pink colour so that you don't see my stitches as much. So I'm going to get this raw edge folded over first. So make sure that you can see the back of your slider so that you're folding it over the right way. Nice and close to that bottom edge, and I'm around, I don't know, 4 mil or so stitch length. I don't want it too loose and I don't want it too tight. and back stitch over that. So that is nice and secure and isn't going to unravel on us. Get rid of those threads. Cool. Now I can move that slider up a little bit. So I've got around 1.5 inches of my webbing up the top there, and then I'll fold that over. Now what I'll do is sew a box on the back there with a little X in the middle to hold that all in place. So I'll go over those existing stitches there so I don't have more stitch lines than what I need. Back stitch. Go down this side, making sure that I'm not going to get too close to that slider. I don't want to hit metal with my needle. Over and up. And then I will pivot and do an X. So I'll go from this top corner down to the opposite bottom corner. Just making sure I'm not going to hit any metal. Across the bottom along those existing stitches. And then back up the other side. Like that, and back stitch. And I reckon that's on there pretty good. So there's my slider on. Now what I'm going to do is have my slider so that that folded over edge is right side up. So my strap is wrong side up, if that makes sense. But this is the back of my strap. I'm just going to take it through my hand so I know there's no twists or anything until I get to that bottom edge. And I'm going to put it into the bottom rectangle ring on my bag and then pull that through like that. Then again, making sure it's not turned over or twisted anywhere. Take that end and pop it up through my slider and then up through the top of my slider like that. So that is what it will look like. Pretty easy. And then again, just running it through my hand. So now my slider is right side up. So this is the top of my strap. Take that through and then pop that under and then we'll sew it on like that. So just make sure that let me just pull that so you can see that is what your strap looks like. But we want right up this end. So when I sew this on, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fold over that raw edge and sew that bit first and then fold that down and then do the same box and X in there. So the first part we want to do is fold up that edge and then stitch along there to hold that down and cover up that raw edge. So just like we did last time, cut that bit free and then we can fold that over our rectangle ring like that. So I'll sew it from the back. Flip that over and same thing. I just want to go along those same existing stitches. I'm a good sort of 1.5 to 2 inch overlapped with my fabric. I've got plenty of room with my strap. I've made it nice and long. And down here, sort of pulling gently on that end so that ring doesn't pop up. Pop that through, pivot that. And then I'll do my X. So from this top corner down to that bottom corner. Again, pulling here so that that ring doesn't bounce up at all. across the bottom and back up to the opposite corner. Now it doesn't really matter how you do it, you just want it to look nice and neat, and so it's nicely reinforced and backstitched. Done. So there we go, there's the strap on there, and that just looks freaking fabulous. I'm stoked with how that come out. It was such a quick, fun little make, but you end up with something that looks a lot more sophisticated in terms of the workmanship and everything in it than the effort that it actually took to make it, if that makes sense. Okay guys, well we are done for the day. We will see you next week, and if you like that, if you sewed along with us, all that type of thing, then like, subscribe, and even if you just watch for funsies, then would really appreciate that YouTube love. Okay guys, we'll see you next week. Have a fab weekend. Bye. Bugger.